Buckle your seatbelts, folks. Today, I'm showing you the greatest grilled cheese and tomato soup ever. In the world. Ever. So we're going to need to start with our tomato soup because it's going to take the longer of the two. And as you can guess, if we're making tomato soup, you're going to need, you guessed it, tomatoes. So these ones here are vine-on tomatoes from Costco. I've had these in the fridge for about 2 weeks, and I have just not had an opportunity to use them. So what you're going to do is take each one and cut them down to either halves or quarters. It doesn't need to look perfect because we're going to roast them all in the oven and then puree them at the end. So if they don't look the best, it's totally okay. Once you're done cutting them, it should look something like this. Next, we're going to take one large yellow onion and cut off both ends like this. It doesn't matter if it's not perfect, again, because once again, these are going to get roasted in the oven with your tomatoes, and if they don't look perfect, that's totally fine. Once your ends are cut off, you're going to take your onion, place it on its bottom, and then cut it down the middle like so. And then once more, we're going to cut it down the middle to cut each half into quarters. Once your onion is quartered, you can start to take the skin off the outside. And then once that's done, you can take each quarter and start to cut it down into smaller pieces. It can be a super rustic chop here. You'll notice each piece of the onion here is probably about an inch thick, which is not ideal if we're eating these as is, but again, these are going to get roasted and then pureed with the tomatoes. So pop them onto your baking sheet with your tomatoes like so. And then let's take a look at what we're working with. Don't forget to also add whole peeled garlic to this tray. I went down with probably about 10 whole cloves. I like my soup garlicky. If you don't like that much garlic, then just use a little less. Then top all of your vegetables with olive oil and then a little bit of salt and pepper. This is going to be the majority of the salt and pepper we use for the entire soup, so be liberal here. It's okay. And then likewise with the pepper, most of the seasoning is coming from right now, so be generous with the pepper as well. Then give everything a really good shuffle in the pan to get everything well coated with oil and all the seasonings. No men left behind. Get back in there, Mr. Tomato. And then flatten everything out. Try to get everything as well separated as possible. And then pop it into an oven that has already been preheated to 425 degrees Fahrenheit. In they go. And say hello to Jackson. He's been helping me cook all day. The bestest boy. Look at her little tushy. Alright, anyways. Veggies are done. Pull them on out. They should have a nice little bit of browning on the top of the vegetables. Then we're going to pop it into our food processor. If you have a blender, that will give you a smoother soup, but I actually like mine a little chunky, so I'm going into the food processor instead. And my food processor is kind of small, so it's actually going to take me 2 rounds to do this, but you'll notice I just put some basil into the first mixture here as well, probably about 5 leaves per batch. And this is totally optional, but I really like the way the basil makes the soup taste in the final product. So give it a really good, thorough blend to combine. It is going to come out kind of chunky, but this is how I like it. If you really like a smoother soup, use a blender. And then pop that into our bowl, and then we'll go down with round 2. And then make sure here, once you're done adding your vegetables, you're pouring in all those juices that were in the bottom of the pan. We do not want to lose that. That is flavor, baby. And then give that another good puree to combine. Give it a taste for seasoning. I actually did not think that this was well salted enough, so you'll see me add another big pinch of salt here and then mix that to combine. And that has pretty much brought me up to where I would like it to be. This soup is kind of sweet. You have to remember, tomatoes are a sweet vegetable slash fruit, so when you roast them, it makes them even sweeter. So if you like your soup saltier, you're going to have to add a lot of salt and pepper. Give it one last taste, and yeah, that's pretty good. Now, let's get started with our grilled cheese. In a perfect world, you're going to use some nicer bread. This is Walmart bakery bread, baby. And you know what? It's pretty dang good, and it did just fine for this grilled cheese. But if you can get something from a legitimate bakery, you should do that, because it's just going to make the sandwich even better. Then we're doing something special. We're going down with some basil and pine nut pesto that it's just store-bought, nothing crazy. You can absolutely make your own if you'd like, but I didn't have the time today. And this was already left over in my fridge. So, adequately cover both sides of your bread with some pesto, like this. And then once that's done, you're going to go down with your cheese, which I'm using just whole fat mozzarella cheese. Kind of was going for a caprese sandwich kind of vibe here, but I didn't use any actual tomato slices on the sandwich because I figured tomato soup was already enough. So just put 4 good thick slices of mozzarella on the sandwich, topped it with our other piece of bread, and then the best way to get a nice brown crust on your grilled cheese, you gotta butter both sides of the bread. So I put a pretty liberal amount of butter on here. This was arguably more than I really needed, but it tasted really dang good. Once that's done, pop it into a pan. Give it a little bit of a press down to make sure you get even surface area, and then do not forget to butter your other side of the bread. If you want the cheese to melt, which, to be honest, the mozzarella was pretty thick and it was having some difficulty keeping up with the bread cooking process, so you'll see me get a little too toasty on one side. You can put a lid on it with a little bit of water in the bottom of the pan, and that will kind of help steam the cheese and melt it quicker. But give it a good flip and then press it down really well one more time. And then let's see the final product here. One more flip. Oh, that looks good. Let's cut that baby in half and give a little cross-section action. As you can see, it's delicious, don't get me wrong, but cheese could have been meltier. It was just not keeping up with the bread. So let's plate it up. Give me a nice, adequate serving of soup. Holy crap, you're gonna love this. What? I said you're gonna love this. Really good.
Let me know when you're ready.